The real Tony Soprano wasn't James Gandolfini playing a fictional mob boss. He was Vincent Vinny Ocean Palermo, running the DeCavalcante crime family from a failing strip club called Wiggles in New Jersey. While HBO's The Sopranos showed Tony commanding his empire from the glamorous Bada Bing with James Gandolfini's powerhouse performance, the actual mobster who inspired David Chase's creation operated from a run-down establishment that could barely pay its bills. In the HBO series The Sopranos, we watch Tony Soprano command his criminal empire from the Bada Bing strip club, a gleaming headquarters where cash flows freely, loyal soldiers snap to attention, and New Jersey organized crime bends to his will. James Gandolfini's Tony controls everything, a man whose authority is absolute and whose family operates like a well-oiled machine across multiple states, with Edie Falco's Carmela managing their suburban lifestyle. But the real mobster who inspired Tony Soprano, Vincent Vinny Ocean Palermo, ran his organization from Wiggles, a strip club that struggled to pay its bills. FBI surveillance photos from 1998 show a ragtag crew of maybe 40 made members, not the powerful dynasty David Chase portrayed on HBO's The Sopranos. This is the DeCavalcante crime family operating from Newark, New Jersey and Elizabeth. And what The Sopranos showed you about them was carefully constructed fiction. The real Tony Soprano story begins with the DeCavalcante crime family, the actual inspiration for HBO's The Sopranos, and the smallest but most notorious mafia family in America. Operating from the streets of Elizabeth and Newark, New Jersey, this tight-knit organization of never more than 50 made members wielded influence far beyond their size, maintained blood ties to Sicily's ancient traditions, earned a seat on the Mafia Commission alongside New York's 5 families, and ultimately became the subject of the most devastating FBI investigation in organized crime history, the real Tony Soprano. While Tony Soprano captivated millions of viewers from his fictional Bada Bing strip club, with James Gandolfini delivering one of television's greatest performances, the real mobsters who inspired his character were conducting business just across the Hudson River from Manhattan's towering skyline. The DeCavalcante family, also known as the North Jersey crime family, controlled gambling, construction, and murder-for-hire operations throughout northern New Jersey and Newark for over half a century. The story begins in the 1920s with Stefano Badami, a Sicilian immigrant who established the first mafia crew in Elizabeth during Prohibition. After Nick Delmore represented the family at the infamous 1957 Appalachian Convention, the family's true foundation was built by Simone DeCavalcante, known as Sam the Plumber. He was a charismatic boss who claimed royal Italian bloodlines and who revolutionized how the American mafia conducted business. Born in 1912, Sam DeCavalcante earned his nickname from his legitimate front company, Kenilworth Heating and Air Conditioning in Newark. But this was no ordinary plumbing business. From his modest office, DeCavalcante orchestrated a multi-million-dollar criminal empire that included illegal gambling, murder, extortion, and political corruption. His influence earned him a seat on the Mafia Commission, the governing body that included New York's 5 families under La Cosa Nostra, making him one of the most powerful crime bosses in America. He was so proud of his supposed noble heritage that fellow mobsters called him the Count, believing his claims of descent from Italian royalty and the famous de' Medici family. In the HBO series, The Sopranos, Tony Soprano's confidence comes from therapy sessions with Dr. Melfi, where we see James Gandolfini's character wrestling with anxiety, examining his choices, questioning the life he has chosen. The show portrays a boss with psychological depth and self-awareness. But the real Sam DeCavalcante never questioned anything. FBI recordings from his Newark plumbing office show a man who fully embraced mob life, who spoke about murder and extortion with the same casual tone he used to discuss plumbing supplies. David Chase gave Tony Soprano therapy because HBO audiences needed someone to explain the mob world. The real DeCavalcante bosses never explained themselves to anyone. What made DeCavalcante unique among American mafia bosses was his willingness to modernize old La Cosa Nostra traditions. He abolished the traditional initiation ceremony that required new members to hold a gun, knife, and burning holy card, declaring he did not feel it was necessary. This pragmatic approach to mafia customs would define the family's culture for decades. In 1961, the FBI made a decision that would change organized crime investigations forever. They planted a listening device in Sam's Newark plumbing office and began recording his conversations. For 4 years, federal agents captured an unprecedented glimpse into the inner workings of an American mafia family, intelligence that would later inform the RICO statutes used to dismantle organized crime nationwide. Sam DeCavalcante discussed murders, political bribes, territorial disputes with New York's 5 families and the Gambino crime family, and the intimate details of running a criminal organization. The conversations revealed a boss who genuinely cared about his men's welfare, often saying, "I'd give my life for our people." But they also exposed the brutal reality of mafia justice. The FBI tapes referenced 8 murders and countless acts of violence, painting a portrait of an organization that mixed loyalty with lethal enforcement. One particularly revealing conversation occurred just days before Thomas Dunn was elected mayor of Elizabeth in 1964. Dunn visited DeCavalcante's office and was recorded saying that if you have any way of getting to 2 individuals, tell them to keep their lousy mouths shut, because this thing could cream me at the last minute. The tapes showed how deeply organized crime had penetrated New Jersey politics. In 1969, the FBI released 2,300 pages of these conversations to the public, creating a sensation in the media and law enforcement. The DeCavalcante papers provided the most detailed look inside a mafia family that had ever been made public, rivaling even Joe Valachi's groundbreaking testimony during the Valachi hearings that first exposed La Cosa Nostra's existence to the American public. Sam served 2 years of a 5-year sentence, then returned to his organization with his reputation intact. The Sopranos on HBO never showed this kind of government penetration. In the series, Tony suspects FBI surveillance but continues operating with remarkable freedom, conducting meetings in restaurants, discussing business openly at the Bada Bing, even traveling without constant fear of recording devices. The real DeCavalcante family lived in paranoia. After the FBI tapes became public in 1969, every conversation became suspect, every room potentially bugged. HBO needed Tony to keep talking for dramatic purposes. The real mobsters learned to communicate in whispers, code words, and silence. By 1980, age and legal pressure convinced Sam to retire to Miami Beach, Florida. He passed control to Giovanni Riggi, known as John the Eagle, a respected soldier who had proven his worth during the family's most turbulent period. Riggi would become one of the most successful mafia bosses of the modern era. Under Riggi's leadership, the DeCavalcante family expanded their influence throughout New Jersey's construction industry and strengthened ties with Angelo Bruno's Philadelphia crime family. Riggi once bragged that not a nail goes through a wall without them getting a piece of it. His crews controlled concrete suppliers, waste management companies, and labor unions. They also maintained close relationships with New York's Gambino crime family under John Gotti, ensuring their survival in an increasingly competitive criminal landscape. This is where The Sopranos HBO series glamorized the reality. In the show, Tony Soprano's waste management business, Barone's Sanitation, provides steady income while serving as a respectable front for his criminal activities. We see clean offices, legitimate contracts, a business that actually functions like Satriali's pork store. The real DeCavalcante construction and waste management operations in Newark were crude shakedown schemes, showing up at job sites demanding payments, threatening work stoppages, and intimidating contractors who would not pay. There was nothing smooth about it. HBO sanitized the extortion because audiences needed to root for James Gandolfini's Tony. The real version was too ugly for primetime television. The Damato murder. But Riggi's empire began crumbling in 1990 when he was indicted on state and federal charges. Facing 12 years in prison, he appointed John Damato, known as Johnny Boy, as acting boss. And that decision would lead to one of the most shocking murders in mafia history. Damato was a well-respected soldier who had earned his position through years of loyal service to the DeCavalcante family. But he harbored a secret that would prove fatal in the hyper-masculine world of organized crime. Damato was secretly attending swingers clubs and engaging in sexual relationships with men. When word of Damato's activities reached other family members, they were outraged. Anthony Capo, a brutal enforcer, later testified in court that nobody was going to respect them if they had a gay homosexual boss sitting down discussing La Cosa Nostra business. On January 6, 1992, Capo and Victor Di Chiara picked up Damato in a white Lincoln, ostensibly to drive him to lunch in Newark. With Damato sitting in the back seat, Capo turned and shot him twice. When Damato groaned the words, "Oh no," Capo shot him twice more, killing him instantly. They searched his pockets, finding $8,000 in cash and an FBI agent's business card, then wrapped his body in a plastic tarp. Damato's corpse was driven to a farm owned by family soldier Philip the Undertaker Lamella in upstate New York, where it was disposed of. His body was never recovered, and the murder remained officially unsolved for over a decade. The Vito storyline. HBO's. The Sopranos adapted this tragedy into the Vito Spatafore storyline in Season 6. When Vito, played by Joseph Ganascoli, is discovered in a gay nightclub, Tony Soprano, played by James Gandolfini, agonizes over what to do, giving Vito time to flee to New Hampshire and showing Tony struggling with the decision to order his death. Christopher, played by Michael Imperioli, and other characters debate the situation across multiple episodes. It is dramatic television, full of moral complexity and delayed consequences. The real John Damato got no such consideration from the DeCavalcante family. There was no agonizing, no philosophical debate, no chance to run. He was murdered within weeks of the rumor spreading, shot in the back of a car without warning. David Chase needed the Vito storyline to span multiple episodes of The Sopranos in order to give Tony a moral dilemma that revealed character. The real DeCavalcante family executed Damato with cold efficiency. There was nothing to debate. The Damato killing exposed the family's vulnerabilities and attracted unwanted attention from law enforcement. But the DeCavalcante organization continued operating under a ruling panel system, with Vincent Vinny Ocean Palermo emerging as the family's most prominent leader. Palermo became the direct inspiration for Tony Soprano after series creator David Chase learned about his criminal activities in Newark and Elizabeth. Like James Gandolfini's fictional mob boss, Palermo owned a strip club called Wiggles, the real-life Bada Bing, where he conducted business and entertained associates. He controlled drug trafficking, illegal gambling, and murder-for-hire operations throughout North Jersey. But Wiggles was nothing like the Bada Bing from HBO's The Sopranos. In the series, the Bada Bing is a thriving entertainment venue with professional dancers, constant customer traffic, and expensive champagne flowing freely. It is a legitimate business that also serves as mob headquarters for Tony's crew. The real Wiggles, according to FBI surveillance reports from 1998, was a failing operation in a run-down Newark building, barely making enough money to cover its overhead. Vinny Ocean used it as a meeting place because rent was cheap and the location was discreet. HBO could not build the Sopranos television series around a struggling strip club in a bad neighborhood. They needed the Bada Bing to feel aspirational and glamorous. The truth would have undermined the entire aesthetic of the show. The DeCavalcante family's downfall began in 1998 when Ralph Guarino, a low-level associate, was arrested for participating in a $1.6 million heist at the World Trade Center. Facing serious prison time under RICO statutes, Guarino agreed to become an FBI informant and began wearing recording devices to family meetings in Newark. FBI agent Michael McInerney, who had been studying the DeCavalcante organization like mind chess, used Guarino's intelligence to build an unprecedented case against the entire family hierarchy. McInerney knew everything about his targets, their children's names, their medical conditions, even their favorite foods. When he arrested Anthony Capo, McInerney brought orange juice and chocolate because he knew Capo was diabetic. This meticulous preparation paid off when Capo agreed to cooperate with the FBI rather than face life in prison. His confession revealed details about the Damato murder, the killing of Staten Island resident Fred Weiss, a murder personally requested by Gambino crime family boss John Gotti, and numerous other unsolved crimes. Capo's testimony became the cornerstone of the government's RICO case against the DeCavalcante family. On December 2, 1999, FBI agents arrested over 30 members and associates of the organization in coordinated raids throughout Newark, Elizabeth, and New Jersey. The arrests effectively dismantled the family's command structure and ended their reign over North Jersey's criminal underworld. In HBO's The Sopranos, when FBI raids happen, they feel almost theatrical. Agents swarm Tony's house. There are dramatic confrontations, and James Gandolfini's character maintains his defiance, even in handcuffs. The show made arrests look like battles of will between worthy adversaries. The real December 1999 raids on the DeCavalcante family were bureaucratic and humiliating. FBI agents arrived at shabby homes and modest apartments in Newark before dawn, arresting men in their pajamas, many of them elderly or sick. There was no defiance, no dramatic standoffs. Most went quietly, already broken by years of surveillance and informant betrayals. David Chase needed the FBI to be formidable but beatable opponents for narrative tension in The Sopranos. The real federal investigation was an overwhelming force that crushed the DeCavalcante family without any cinematic drama. The trials that followed were devastating for the DeCavalcante organization. Between 1999 and 2005, 45 men were imprisoned under RICO statutes, including the family's consigliere and 7 capos. Philip Abramo, known as the King of Wall Street, a college-educated accountant who had used his financial expertise to run sophisticated stock fraud schemes, was convicted of 5 murders and sentenced to life in prison. As these real-life events unfolded, HBO premiered The Sopranos in 1999. The FBI captured family members on wiretaps discussing the show and debating which characters matched real people they knew. One mobster was recorded asking what The Sopranos was and whether it was supposed to be them. The irony was not lost on investigators. The DeCavalcante family that inspired television's most famous mobsters was being destroyed while millions watched James Gandolfini and Edie Falco's performances on screen. The show's Vito Spatafore storyline, where a mobster is killed for being gay, was directly based on the Damato murder. Even Tony Soprano's psychological struggles and family dynamics with Carmela, played by DeCavalcante, reflected the real pressures faced by New Jersey mob leaders trying to balance traditional La Cosa Nostra values with modern realities. Today, the DeCavalcante family exists as a shadow of its former self. Giovanni Riggi died in 2015 at age 90, having served as the family's most successful boss for over 3 decades. Charles Maggiore, known as Big Ears, the current official boss, has been preparing to retire, with Domenico Marzullo, known as Mimo, expected to take control of what remains of the organization operating from Newark and Elizabeth, New Jersey. The FBI investigation, which solved 11 murders and secured 71 convictions using RICO statutes, stands as one of the most successful organized crime prosecutions in American history. It demonstrated how modern investigative techniques could penetrate even the most secretive American mafia organizations. Because of HBO's The Sopranos, millions of people believe they understand what real organized crime looks like. They picture wealthy mobsters living in suburban mansions like Tony, conducting business from upscale strip clubs, maintaining complex psychological lives while navigating family drama and therapeutic breakthroughs with Dr. Melfi. They imagine mob life as a tragic but somehow noble existence, full of loyalty codes and meaningful traditions. The real DeCavalcante crime family tells a different story. These were men operating from failing businesses in declining Newark and New Jersey towns. Men who murdered a respected boss for his sexual orientation without hesitation. Men who turned on each other the moment federal pressure arrived. They didn't agonize over moral choices in therapy sessions. They made brutal decisions quickly and lived with constant paranoia. The Sopranos, HBO's series, succeeded because David Chase made mob life feel psychologically rich and narratively satisfying. Chase created characters we could analyze, motivations we could understand, a world that felt complex enough to sustain 86 episodes of prestige television, with James Gandolfini and DeCavalcante delivering powerhouse performances. The real DeCavalcante family was none of those things. They were small-time criminals who happened to inspire the greatest mob story ever told, and then got destroyed by the same FBI surveillance techniques that Sam the Plumber first experienced in 1961. From Sam DeCavalcante's bugged plumbing office in Newark to Vinny Ocean Palermo's failing strip club, from John Damato's murder to the 1999 FBI raids that ended their organization, the DeCavalcante crime family's real story is more pathetic than prestigious, more bureaucratic than dramatic. HBO's The Sopranos gave us Tony Soprano's compelling tragedy through James Gandolfini's iconic performance. Reality gave us something far less cinematic but infinitely more honest. But the DeCavalcante family's legacy extends beyond law enforcement statistics. Their story reveals the complex reality behind organized crime's romanticized image portrayed in The Sopranos. These weren't the sophisticated criminals portrayed by James Gandolfini and created by David Chase, but desperate men caught between ancient La Cosa Nostra traditions and modern pressures, between loyalty and survival, between honor and brutality. From Sam the Plumber's royal pretensions to Johnny Boy Damato's tragic secret, from Vinny Ocean's failing strip club to the FBI's patient investigation, the DeCavalcante family's rise and fall illuminates both the enduring appeal of mafia mythology created by HBO's The Sopranos and the harsh consequences of criminal life. The real Sopranos never had the luxury of cutting to black when trouble arrived. Their story ended not with ambiguity like David Chase's series finale, but with handcuffs, RICO prosecutions, and the destruction of a criminal empire that had dominated New Jersey for generations. In the end, the DeCavalcante crime family discovered that reality offers no protection from the consequences of a life built on violence, corruption, and betrayal, unlike the fictional world that James Gandolfini's Tony Soprano inhabited on HBO.